I
Good
was
morning,
muted.
Jeff.
Good morning.
It's quite a time gap, time gap we have here. I think it's what 15 hours, I think.
Wow.
And
How are you, Chef?
so, how's it going? Welcome. This is a group of culinary hospitality. We actually have some previous graduates as well, invited as well, just to listen to you. And I feel like we're all privileged and lucky to have you in our meeting. And I think it's such a great opportunity to hear from someone as well experienced as you, who's had such a broad range of contributions in the industry. So a lot
And
of these
such a
students,
long,
someone to share
such
with
a
how it
long career. I'm feeling it.
works. Yeah, no, it does get tiring after a while. You look back and you try not to look too far back, as well. It does extend the years.
Yeah. So tell me about your culinary class.
So, well, our culinary program actually was started by my boss, who I'm not too sure he was maybe going to join us. His name's Chef Michael, and he came to Iowa and he started a culinary program in Iowa, and he was running it for about 5 years before I joined him. But he really started with nothing, just a sort of a cutting board in a dark room of a photo studio, and then built it into a really well-established culinary school. And we're proud to say that we teach it as close to the way we were taught. Both of us did apprenticeships in hotels, and did 3 apprenticeships in hotels, and we were kind of taught the old way, I guess.
And so what is the curriculum? I mean, is that set by the state government, or is it a local thing?
We basically have a lot of freedom in how we do the curriculum and how we what books we use and what resources we use. So we don't have to follow the American Culinary Federation as such. We can change it depending on what we want.
Right. So who measures the outcome then?
Well, we are measuring it. We have certain things we have to meet with the college. Obviously, have certain standards we have to meet in terms of things like that it holds accountable to, and student outcomes and business outcomes and things like that. But our goal really is to get them as equipped as possible, to get them jobs and get them in the industry. And we do tell them that if they work hard in the beginning, then we can secure those positions for them.
Yeah.
Or open those doors.
Hi guys. Hi everyone. Is everyone excited to graduate?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Amanda's joining, I think. So is there anything you'd like to ask me going forward?
Yeah, Chef, I think, obviously looking back on the different things that you've gone through in the industry, and obviously you've moved from restaurants to TV to cookbooks to cruise liner, all that sort of thing. I mean, obviously a lot of these students don't really know which way to go. I think the industry is so broad that they can become a little indecisive.
Let me tell you one thing, that all of those other things were to support the restaurant.
Oh, okay.
So, if we were to talk about, if we want to talk about cooking as a profession, or you want to talk about cooking as a means to earn money, very different disciplines.
Yeah, for sure. I think for these guys, the means to cook for the enjoyment of cooking and for being a part of the industry.
And I think really the only reason to be a chef is for the enjoyment, because otherwise it's a terrible punish of a job. If you don't like it, if you've been forced into the job and you truly don't have a love for the craft and the passion of it, then it's a terrible job. And if you know that already, then please move on. Don't waste any more time. But if you're passionate about it, it will certainly it'll provide sort of succor and solace and happiness for you for decades to come. So as I am an avid home cook, and I love to cook, and every day, I've joined the great sourdough bake-off during this time, COVID-19, so like everyone else, and you'll be pleased to know that I've had many failures, including last night, as I got distracted from the craft and had to head out and do something else, and my starter was too cold. And so, cooking at home and cooking in the kitchen are very different things. So I'm used to delegating my ideas and having them realized, and then clapping myself on the back when they succeed. Yeah.
Well, it's definitely one of those industries that maybe in the beginning, when you first start, it feels like so much of a sacrifice, but as you go through it, you kind of feel like you wouldn't want to be anywhere else, you know? You kind of feel like this is where you feel at home.
Well, I see, a few mature age students. I was probably 25 when I started cooking, and I was an electrician in the gold mines in Western Australia before I decided I wanted to be a chef. So very different to some of my colleagues who perhaps started straight out of junior high school, straight into the culinary fields because that was just what you did. And by the time they were 25, half of them were burnt out. So,
yeah,
it's a very different thing for me to go into it with a passion for cooking. I'd fallen in love with regional cooking of France by that stage and had traveled there, and, just a complete student of culinary history and everything in chefs. And of course I have, pictures here. What's this one? This is a picture of me and Michel Bras and Layol in south of France in 2003. So I was fairly well established by then. I mean, my restaurant had been running for 4 years, but, he was one of my heroes. And so I think that, if you want to be Guy Fieri, then maybe this isn't for you if you want to be a celebrity. But if you want to know who Thomas Keller is, or you're a fan of Thomas Keller, you're on the right path. If you don't know who Thomas Keller is, then you've got some homework to do after this.
It's funny. Every year we normally take our students to the big NRA food show in Chicago, and we take them to a couple of restaurants as well. And there was one year that Thomas Keller was doing
NRA. I have a
NRA,
different understanding. The what?
The National Restaurant Association show in Chicago.
Okay, you share
Not
the
Rifle Association.
Share the acronym. Yeah, that's had me confused.
And we were waiting because Thomas Keller was going to do a meet and greet and a book signing, and we gathered all our students around, and we were waiting, and we kind of snuck in early, and we were at the food show, and Thomas Keller walks past, and we're all just like excited and sort of in awe. And there's a bunch of people are sort of saying, "Who's that guy?" And they're at the show. They're one of the people that are working at some of the booths. And like, you don't know who Thomas Keller is. Why are you at this big food show?
I mean, that's the thing. You'll find that anyone who's great at their craft, as Thomas is a great historian and fan of everything. I've got books here from Antoine Carême, from the 1840s, through to modernist cuisine books, and you see that's sort of see behind me. That's my culinary library in my lounge. And chefs are often defined. I mean, I know it's the internet these days, but they're defined by their book collections in a way. It sort of shows where their head is at and how deep their knowledge is in a way. So you just use those books to aspire to and try to emulate, as I did. I think the most difficult thing for you guys is to try and find your niche in the market, your niche in this culinary world, and how you're going to, what is your culinary voice. And I can say that central frustration will drive you incredibly, it will just drive you insane for a decade or more before you finally decide that you have something unique to offer to the world of cooking. Because most of the time it seems like every idea that ever came up has been done. And Marco Pierre White, the great English chef, he once famously said that you can't reinvent the wheel, you can just put new tires on it. And that is really what cooking is about. It's about taking history, it's about taking all of your cultural influences, whether they be from Iowa or broader, or your cultural background, or what you eat at home, where you eat, where you travel, and putting those into your own work, and using not just tradition, but all of the influences. I mean, that's really what defines me as an Australian chef as well. Living in Sydney, we have, I think, 135 different language groups living, represented, socialising all of their culture here. And that's what Sydney is about. That's why we eat, and that's what influences me, and especially, being a predominantly Western nation, geographically located in South of Asia, which a lot of people don't realise about Australia. I mean, it's quicker for me to get to Jakarta, Indonesia, than it is to visit my mum in Perth in Western Australia.
You know, it's funny. I think that, and maybe this is because I have two kids and they're both very young, and also just recently got a puppy. That I feel like sometimes the industry is like having a small child or a puppy, where it can really frustrate you, and then all of a sudden there can be one moment that makes it all worth it, or just extends why you are there, why you're taking part in it, why you're working so hard for it. You know, you can work hard in this industry. You know.
Also, add to your analogy, if that puppy can also have access to your bank account and spend like a drunken sailor, well, then your analogy holds.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I just think that there's to see, we talk about the students and how in our restaurant, we have a small restaurant that we use to teach our students just how the industry is going to be, perhaps give them a glimpse into feeding actual customers. And there's a small window where you can look out into the restaurant. And we'll often tell them that if you get a moment and you can send your food out that you've worked so hard to prepare, and you can have a moment and just look out that window and see the guest as they receive it and see the expression and maybe even sort of semi-lip read what they're saying. That's what that kind of refuels you, because you go, we're doing, you know, there is an outcome that's satisfying here. I'm serving people, they're happy. Yeah. I'm contributing towards that, you know?
I mean, that's what we're in it for ultimately, and that's what you become addicted to. I mean, I also had a long, elongated rectangular window into the dining room, but I went a step further and I had cameras everywhere. I could see every table, so I knew how to pace the evening. But certainly we're in it for the applause, and there's an analogy for restaurants to the theatre. I mean, every night is a new show. Those curtains open and you have to be on no matter what. If you've got a broken leg, you're ill, maybe except in these times of the plague. But other than that, you know, you have to perform, and you have to put on your best performance every day. And probably the turning point for me was when you're a younger chef and developing, you know, you're in a hurry, you're in a panic, and you put out food that you're not entirely happy with. And you know that eats away at you. That'll eat away at you for like 2 weeks. That one plate that you put out that you knew was crap. And that day that you decide that you're never going to put out anything beneath standard is the day that you'll turn, and the day that you'll start to improve and you'll start to turn into a chef, because that nagging feeling never goes away. But if you know that you've done your absolute best, no excuses on that day, on that service, then you're going to go forward. And that's important to realize that, and to look at what you're doing and say, was that the best I could possibly do? It doesn't matter if you're in culinary school cooking for guests who may be subsidized. It doesn't mean that, or free, it doesn't mean that they get any lesser experience than you could, that you should be providing to the best of your possible ability. Doesn't matter if they're paying $300, the expectation is the same from the guest, and you have to live up to that expectation. And that's your duty as a chef and as a professional cook, is to live up to people's expectation, because you're not only giving them dinner, breakfast, afternoon tea, whatever it is, wherever you're working, you're bringing enjoyment, you're bringing a moment to people where they can sit and relax and take time out from their own lives and forget their own personal cares. So you're giving them a period in time where they can just sit and eat and relax, and it's a big responsibility.
Yeah, I think it's trying to, as a young cook, or as these guys are kind of getting close to graduating now, you start off, you know, not really sure what you're supposed to care about, and our job is kind of to help you and direct you to kind of see that all the small things matter, and that, you know, everything from your uniform to being on time to, you know, the tablecloth being right, to the glass being right, to the posture being right. You know, it's every person that's coming there to support your restaurant by eating there, you know, deserves for you to be on point, you know, and once you start caring, you know, you're not going to be late, and you're not going to be absent, and you're not going to fall short because you know that's just not what you want to do, that you know that you know you don't want to compromise, you know.
Well, something that I learned when I first started, you know, being given that I started late, and I worked straight in a restaurant straight away. I didn't go to a culinary school other than a local. 1 day a week we had to required to get a trade certificate, but certainly working in a restaurant, what I wanted to know was why what was the difference between what I was cooking? We used the best possible ingredients. We worked hard. What was the difference between that and perhaps a 3 Michelin star of fine dining, or the best chefs, you know, that I was trying to emulate? What was the difference between their food? And really the answer is simple and complex. The simple answer is that it's accumulation of all the tiny details. They make a world of difference. There's no big things. It's the tiny things that add up. And when you tell people, why is your neckerchief not done correctly? Why is your uniform? It's not about you looking fashion fine. It's about those details, because if you're taking care of those details, then you're taking care of all details. If the chef looks sloppy or acts sloppy or doesn't turn up or is 5 minutes late, not 5 minutes early, that means that all of those details are not being taken care of on the plate when they're finishing that sauce, when they're producing that stock. You know, they're making the chicken stock and they're burning the little bit of cartilage and they're thinking, oh, it doesn't matter. But in the end, once you reduce that, the stock is incredibly bitter. So where did that go wrong? It wasn't the 4 hours that it was cooking. It was that young cook that forgot that tiny detail. So that's why in this industry that we bother talking about those type of details, about having your nerve sharp, having this, having that. It just seems that we're constantly harping on about all of those things, but it's about getting people into the mindset of focusing every day on every single detail of your job, because all of those add up to excellence. And that's what we're here for. We're in the pursuit of excellence, as Thomas Keller famously said.
Yeah, and I think, Chef, in two ways, you think of the accumulation of small details that add up to the full experience of the guest, but also, you know, if you think back to your own life, you can, each and every one here can think back to something that maybe somebody did at the time. They didn't realize it was so small for them. They didn't even realize it was having a lifelong impact. So for us, we don't know what we're going to leave, you know?
Well, you guys are going to be part of a team one day. And look, you can, to a certain extent, you can help your teammates achieve excellence, but it's really up to you and your individual performance. You know, it is about teamwork, but every player, every actor has to do their absolute very best, and in that way you'll see who's not performing, and perhaps you can then assist them to achieve their best as well. And in that way, once you get that feeling as a team of achieving excellence, I tell you, there's no better feeling in the entire world. It doesn't matter if you're on a cruise ship, doesn't matter if you're in a hotel restaurant, doesn't matter if you're doing breakfast service in a hotel for 500 people. They're all aspects to the job. The thing is to enjoy what you're doing every day in every service. Yes, I know you might be tired. I know you might be overwhelmed by the amount of work, the amount of bookkeeping, the dietary requests from the customers, which may seem a total pain in the ass, but it's your job to accommodate them. Okay, it's not your job to decide what is a relevant point of my profession and what isn't. It all is. Can I talk to some of the students? I mean, I'd love to hear from them and tell me, introduce themselves by name, and tell me a little bit about themselves just quickly, and just ask me a question.
All right, let's start with Isabel. On the spot.
Way to put me on the spot.
Hi, Isabel.
Hi. So I've done the culinary program, and then I also did the hospitality program.
Yeah.
I have found myself more interested in the front of house operations.
Yeah.
Definitely with like mixology and things like that. Definitely into that sort of thing. Oh goodness,
It's okay.
Have any questions?
This is your chance for glory. One question.
So you've had restaurants. Did you have to do anything with the front of house, or did you have like somebody that was appointed to the front of house and like?
Well, my wife and I have worked together since we started owning restaurants. So basically for all of my career, I've been self-employed. I worked for 5 years for someone else at Macleay Street Bistro as a chef, and my wife was a teacher, and then we owned our first bistro after that. And so that was just a sheer naivety and bravado, and we spent all of our money, like everything, to run this small place, but we'd learned an enormous amount, perhaps different times. As you know, that the restaurant industry is under incredible pressure at this point with the social distancing, etc. And going forward, I mean, we're going to have to think of a new way. You guys are the future, which is why I'm happy to talk to you, because you guys are going to have to think of a new way forward, a new business model for restaurants and bars, and perhaps there will be a new term for mixology, as you call it, for bars. Who knows what will be in fashion by then? But I think, you know, you have a bright future ahead of you, and so this is. I think I lost track of the question.
Just, do you did you have any experience with like working front of house, like serving?
Oh yeah. So first and foremost, I'm a restaurateur. I'm a chef. I'm a chef, I'm an owner, and I'm a restaurateur. So that gave me a different perspective. Instead of just being an employed chef out the back, you have a very different perspective if your name is on the door. So my wife Valerie ran the front of house and I ran the kitchen. And of course, she told me what she thought we should be doing, and I told her. So with obviously mixed results on both sides, given that everyone had a clear demarcation between the front and back of house, but we respected each other's opinions, and she would talk to me from the customs perspective, and I would talk to her from my practical or artistic perspective, or what I was trying to achieve, and we would have a discussion and make a compromise.
Thank you. And Samantha?
I'm obviously Samantha. I'm a first-year student. I'll be doing hospitality next year. My question is what advice can you give for when you want to start a business? Like, where's the best place to start after getting some experience in the industry?
The bank. Look, you're going to need a lot of money, and the issue with this business is that we have completely underfunded in terms of opening new businesses. One of the things that you should do is to go and do an accountancy course or a short business course, because that's going to give you the foundation and the fundamentals to running your own business. If you need to make a solid business case, not just to realize your dreams, a solid business case. There are a lot of dreams that are dashed on the rocks of, the hard fundamentals of accounting and debt. So I wish to be encouraging here as well, but you have to ask the hard questions, and you can save yourself an enormous amount of pain by asking those hard questions. Is there a market? Is there a market where I want to open the restaurant? Can I afford the rent? What is the business case? Can I charge enough to cover all of my outgoings? Will anyone pay that? Is anyone employed in my town, my area, my suburb? Who is my audience? Will they like what I want to cook them, what I want to offer them? All of these types of questions, you need to ask yourself. You need to do a lot of research, and asking a lot of people, and perhaps working for successful restaurateurs where you want to work, and see what they're doing right. Look at what they're doing right, and also look at what you think they're doing wrong, because that's going to be your point of difference going forward.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, if you chef, I've worked for some people that had just opened restaurants just a few months in, and when you work for people like that, you get to see firsthand what that first initial struggle is, and it can make you realize you need a lot of research and you need to learn a lot more before you dive into that.
It's better to, that within a year, more than 50% of new startups will have failed. Within the second year, 50% of those will have failed. And then the third year, another 50% will have failed. So the attrition rate for new businesses is prodigious. So just be aware of that. So only a few survive. So all of your hopes, dreams, whatever savings you have, your mum and dad's savings, your boyfriends, your girlfriends, whoever you've been able to cadge money out of, will have to live with that as well. So be aware you're taking everyone along for the financial ride, and everyone hopes for success, but reality sometimes is a mitigating factor there.
Skylar.
Hi.
Hi, Skylar.
I did culinary last year, and then this year I will be completing my hospitality. But I also decided that next year I'll be coming back to take some of those accounting courses and to learn more of the business side, because I found myself to like front of house, and like eventually I do want to own. So is there like one major thing that you've learned from owning that you wish you could have done, or like what you've learned from mistakes?
Oh, this could go on for such a long time. So many mistakes. I wished probably that I had engaged with experts earlier on in terms of looking at financial people, talking to perhaps accountants or business people, etc., to give me those fundamentals. I went forward, and I was lucky enough to have started my first restaurant in the, I think, maybe the late 90s. So it's a very different time in the restaurant world. I would be, obviously very experienced now starting up a restaurant, but I would do it entirely differently now, understanding all aspects of running a restaurant. And I think that's what you need to do. You need to understand all aspects of owning a restaurant. The issue with being an owner when you're not the chef or you're not the front of house is then you're also at the behest of your employees. One of the reasons for the success of our restaurant was the fact that my wife and I were the two key employees of the entire establishment. So no matter what happened, we could always open our doors. We could always open our doors, and you're right there, Shane.
Yep.
Shane. So no matter what happened, we could always open our doors with a few people behind us. But if you're having to employ chefs, it's like owning racehorses. They're incredibly expensive and don't always do what they're told. So same with front of house managers, so you have to be aware of all aspects of that job and probably have experience yourself in kitchens and also in front of house, working with good front of house players. So don't work for people who are just startups. Work for someone that is successful and has been there for 10 years. And by successful, I mean, looks like they have a full restaurant most days of the week. And go and work for those people and have a look at their customer base, how they interact with them, how they deal with the everyday issues. Ask questions. Ask lots of questions. They'll see you'll be a valued employee because they see that you're engaged with their business, and you will also learn a lot. So that's probably what you need to do going forward, and that's going to take a while before you own your own business.
Excellent. Lissandro.
Hey, Chef. My name is Lissandro, and
Hi.
I'm first year, and I'm in culinary. So this is going to be my only year, and then I'll be heading into the industry. So my question would be, if you were in our position straight out of culinary school, would there be like a crucial like first step that you would do, and something that you would also like try to avoid?
I would try and work for the best operators that you can in your area. So I would just continue knocking on that door. I would camp outside their door, and these are people that are celebrated within your area by the local newspapers or the local guides as a place of quality and a place of excellence. And I would go and try and work for that place, no matter where you have to start, whether it's putting out the trash or just get your foot in the door and work your way up within that establishment and gain the best possible experience that you can. It's no good just getting a job. You can waste a lot of time, you know. It's no good working at Taco Bell and thinking I want to be a restaurateur one day. It's not the experience you need. You need to work for a celebrated establishment, somewhere that celebrates excellence, and that's where you need to get in. And that's for all of you, whether you want to be in bars, or if you want to be front of house and you want to focus on the business side of it, then you need to be working for an accountancy firm that deals with the hospitality industry. So focus your efforts and also your employment on your long-term plan.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I just completed my first year in the Culinary Arts program. And I was wondering, like, what do you look for as the ideal employee when you're hiring in one of your restaurants?
Someone that wants to be there is good. I mean, in terms of my kitchen was seen as a difficult or hard kitchen. It wasn't because they were abused or not fed or worked 100 hours. My was seen as difficult because I expected people to live up to their full potential. And I was very demanding. If I felt that people weren't living up to what I perceived to be their full potential, then I would be on them to work out why they weren't living up to it. And so that included not asking me stupid questions that could have been answered at home by Google. Doesn't matter what age you are or what level of experience. It's whether you decide that from here you're going to go and work in a bakery. It doesn't matter. Find out all that you can about your particular job. It not only makes you an excellent employee, it makes you intrinsically interested in your craft, and you will grow as a person. I mean, as you know, the famous, forget who it was, said that to become an expert in anything takes 10,000 hours of practice. This is its experience when we were on the final table with my mate Shane, and they said, "Oh God, you guys were so calm and relaxed, and you know, and what you produced in the hour." And I said, "What's your secret?" And I said, "A collective experience of about 60 years." And that's the same as you guys, you know, the analogy that shows an analogy to your work. You need to have a solid plan going into your day so that you can achieve an outcome, a measured outcome by the end of every day. And if you didn't meet it, then you have to work out why you didn't meet it and what you need to change to meet your desired outcome the next day. One of probably the secrets to my success was that I actually started in the kitchen. I did 4 years of pastry before I actually started into the savory kitchen. So that really gives you the structure and the mentality and the exactness that you need to go into.
All right, Gabby, you're sitting outside enjoying the weather there.
It's because you started talking about pastry that you called on me. I'm Gabby. Hi, chef. I think, what is a chef that keeps you passionate and inspired, like still to this day, and having so much experience? What's one chef that you still look up to?
Look, I look up to all of the greats, alive and dead, you know. So going back to the classics, I mean, obviously Paul Bocuse, you might have heard of, and Roger Verger, and you know, from my culinary library, people like Pierre Gagne continues to inspire me. I mean, he's into his 70s now. He's been an incredible iconoclastic chef that continues to inform him in his genius in his world. People I worked with, like Alain Passard at Arpège in Paris.
Amanda.
Hello, chef. I'm Amanda. I finished.
Where's your video, man?
Oh, my questions that I have for you are: how do you stay up to date on like the new trends of what's coming out for food and new plating ideas and all these new different techniques? Like, how do you make sure that you stay up to date on that?
It's a new thing. It's called the internet. Please don't cook from Instagram. Buy books still buy books, buy classic books. I mean, look at my library behind me, this is one of the great sort of culinary volumes of French cooking by Alain Ducasse and all of his head chefs, Michelin-starred chefs, the Grand Livre de Cuisine by Alain Ducasse. Costs a fortune, but it's something that, is almost like an heirloom. It's a body of knowledge that can't be gleaned from anywhere else. I mean, it's so focused. If you only ever had to have one book, then I would buy that one. So it's just things like that. I mean, I have this library, and I use the internet to pick up pieces of knowledge that I don't understand, like, why is my sourdough loaf flat? So I'll go onto YouTube and I have to be careful not just to emulate people directly and then say that you're creating things, because the definition of creativity ultimately is to not copy. No one owns food, no one owns art, but it's okay. I mean, if I put that idea out there and someone does it, it's fine, but don't claim the big thing is don't claim that you thought of it. As my front of house just said, Valerie, it's about vision and expression. So what you're saying is those books will encapsulate that particular chef's vision and how they set out to achieve it, what their roadmap was. And I think that's very instructional for you guys as well.
Camera's on.
Hey, chef. I'm Andy. I'm a first-year student of culinary arts, and what really fascinates me is fish. That really is my passion. So the question I have for you is, what is the best advice you can give on working a cruise liner or even working with fish on a cruise liner?
Well, you'll get used to working with frozen fish. So, first of all, I got a question for you. What's your favorite local fish?
My local? Well, in Iowa, it's a lot of fresh, like freshwater fish. So walleye. I really like working with walleye.
Walleye? What's to describe that to me?
It's white meat and it's flaky and it's just really, it's really tasteful. I like it, but what I wanted to go in this program is to work with different other fish like saltwater fish and snapper and tuna and all that.
Right. So what's wrong with your local fish?
There's a river. It's really muddy. Nothing's really clean. Des Moines.
Des Moines.
It runs into the river.
I'm more interested in using what I have, not what I want. So you talk about using tuna. You have to understand that wild tuna stocks have been completely depleted by overfishing. That farmed tuna, where Australia produces an enormous amount of farmed tuna out of South Australia, but to feed them, they have to go and take the native anchovy and sardine populations. They catch them in large nets, process them, and feed them to pellets to the tuna, which creates all sorts of environmental damage so that people can eat sushi rolls in their lunchbox every day. I'm not too keen on that. I'd be far more interested. So I'm much more interested in people who are doing things with the local wild population, which is abundant and sustainable. Walleye is abundant, but it's a bit muddy, and also it's sort of ordinary. The challenge for you is to turn that fish into something that people are going to pay good money for and say it's absolutely delicious. And that's the key to being a good chef, is to taking things that are in abundance and probably just ordinary and turning it into something wonderful. That's the art of a chef.
Thank you.
I know that you want to travel and see the world, and cooking does allow you to travel a lot, but it's not the fundamental reason to cook.
Good morning, Chef. I'm Bennett. So I did culinary last year, and I've had like a really big passion for food. But over this last year, I did front of house, so I've had like this huge passion in mixology and bartending. So my question for you is like, do you have any like regrets like owning a business, or if you can like go back and change something, would you? And like, what is it?
Yeah, well, I have many regrets. I try not to focus on them because I find that regrets drag you down. So I'm a bit of Buddhist. I focused on now and perhaps don't even worry too much about the future. If I worried about how much money that I'd lost with bad business decisions and stupid stuff that I've done, I tell you, I wouldn't be here now. So I try to use the past to inform my future, certainly, and not make the same mistakes again. The definition of insanity is to do the same thing and expect a different outcome.
Okay. Hi. I'm Caden. I graduated about 2 years ago up in Minnesota underneath Gavin Kaysen at Spoon Stable. I guess I really have like 3 questions. Three questions and then, well, 4 questions, I guess. One, do you have your meteorite knife
I said
on
one
you?
question.
Okay. Do you have your meteorite knife on you? Like, could I see that?
What?
Or just for
I've
spices.
got a knife steward. I've sent my knife steward to get my knife.
Best, but what is okay?
So this is the guy that gave it to me said it was made out of a meteorite, and I've never tested the veracity of that claim. But I love the knife, handle shape that fits your hands, not just what is. Don't go and spend a fortune on knives. Basic maxim is when people would walk into my kitchen, that the bigger the knife roll, the less the talent. So I would rather a person came into my kitchen with one very sharp knife than a whole roll of, dull or expensive knives. So just be aware of that. When you walk in with a giant leather rollout satchel, I'll probably tell you to put it away and just choose 2 knives. Use a lot more. I was talked before about the immigration into Sydney, especially Sydney being Sydney is the major port of most immigration. We have 135 different language groups here, and the thing that really turned Sydney into a culinary centre was the fact that those people started, when they came here with nothing, the first thing they did was start work as taxi drivers or cooks, and as it's probably does all over America. Those different immigrants come in and they start cooking, and then to support they miss home, so they start cooking their food, and they try and cook the food that they know and love because they miss home, and then they start growing that produce to support that, and then they start restaurants. And the best part of being a chef for me is going to the markets and having all of that produce to choose from and using it to come up with new dishes and new expressions.
Are you still pleasantly surprised by something you don't know what it is?
I have a friend, Palisa Anderson. She did run, has 16 separate outlets. Her mother is Thai. Palisa was born in Thailand but has lived here all of her life, but she's now established an enormous organic garden in northern New South Wales. So northern New South Wales, the state that I live in, is sort of subtropical, and so hence they can grow things that you'll find in Southeast Asia. So I'm just eating the most amazing little tiny bananas. Can you have a banana, Valerie? She sent me a box of produce from her farm, which was just incredible. I had to ring her and ask her. She was in Bangkok, and I said, I have no idea what half of this stuff is, especially all of the culinary herbs. And she told me what it was and how it's used. And this is stuff that's just grown an hour's flight from Sydney. Think of these tiny bananas. They came as a big hand about this big, and they were tiny little green bananas. And I said, all the bananas were hard and green. She said, and they've taken about a week and a half, and now they've turned yellow. And that's the interesting thing, that even something like a banana, I mean, these are locally grown in northern New South Wales. So you see that tiny, I have enormous fingers, but I show you the that's a tiny little banana, and just the flavor of it is just incredible. It tastes like sort of lemony. It tastes a bit there's a bit of guava. There's some sort of subtle tropical influence. It's just so different from a normal banana. I mean, those types of things blow me away completely. Every day I'm still learning about things, and that's why I love what I do, because I'm continually learning. When you think that there's nothing to learn, it's about you. It's not, the world is a big, enormous place. There's so much to learn, so much to know.
Oh, all right, Chef. My name is Shane. I actually graduated the program about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I've been working in the industry since then. I would guess my biggest question for you is something you mentioned earlier, those mistakes you've made that you sent out to a customer that wasn't quite up to your standard and that just kind of sticks with you. And then you've also had some great victories, where you've met or exceeded customers' expectations. How do you balance holding those two? Because I find that they both motivate me in different ways, but I don't want to think too much about the past, like you were saying. So where do you find that balance?
Well, it's human nature to hold on to the negative and the mistakes far longer than the positives. And we can have an entirely successful service, and it's the one bad plate, or it's the one negative response from a customer that we hang on to that niggles at us and makes us go home and have 4 drinks instead of 2. And so the point is to change your attitude as well, and look at, you can't accommodate everyone's needs. So customers are sometimes in not always in the correct emotional place to be, a good customer. But the thing is not to hang on to it. And if you have made a mistake, the point is, if you have time, is to fix that mistake. And we always did it. We made many mistakes. I mean, our restaurant, we seated 50 people. We did a degustation or a set course menu only of 10 courses. That was 500 plates a night in a 4-hour period. And there was only 6 of us in the kitchen. So sometimes we did make mistakes. And the point was, at that very point that you'd made the mistake, was to go out and if not fess up to it, then perhaps be a bit more generous to that customer. So it makes you feel better. You've sent, by way of food, an apology without saying anything. The customer's happy because they're getting extra special treatment. They feel good. You feel good. And you go, okay, all right, I've done it. You don't have to fall on your sword because you've sent out an overcooked piece of meat. You just have to fix the problem.
Well, Chef, I also just really wanted to say thank you very much for spending this time with us. It's very generous of you, and I truly appreciate it. And also thank Chef Jeffrey, for inviting some of us old folks who aren't in the program anymore. But thank you very much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I mean, I see you've got a picture of Miles Davis behind you. You can imagine how many hours and what he went through to get to the point of his expression, and then that's the challenge for everyone.
Oh, for sure.
You don't know who Miles Davis is, go and look that up as well. I'm still waiting for you need to listen to Sketches of Spain, Miles Davis, amazing.
Yeah, but I think that the group of all the answers that you've given kind of would be the advice that these students should be taking. But obviously what I think is always important for them is to realize, especially now with all this COVID and the quarantine and these restaurants that are having to adjust and the pressures and all that stuff, is to not, when they finally get out there and get their job, is to not be deterred or feel down because it's tough, because it's supposed to be tough. We have to go through it.
Everything's tough, no matter what industry you're going to go into. When you're starting out into the job market, everything is tough. You work hard. You don't know what you're doing. You don't earn much money. I mean, everything is tough. If you can get into the job, the thing is to remain positive about what you want to achieve. Remain focused. Don't be dissuaded or distracted. Remain focused on what the goal that you want to achieve, and be happy. Be happy with the knowledge that you will achieve it eventually. You don't have a fear of the future. I mean, yes, it is difficult times, but there have been other difficult times in this world. This is very highly unusual, but from these times comes enormous opportunity as well. Be positive. I mean, you can change anything about yourself going forward from today, from now. You can decide to do something different with yourself. It doesn't mean whatever your past means. It doesn't mean that you're locked into that. Practice and challenge yourself every day and learn. I mean, the key to positivity is education. We're often fearful of our own ignorance more than anything. So get out there and learn other cultures, you know, challenge yourself. Go into a restaurant that you've never been in before, that you probably wouldn't eat something that you've never eaten before. Learn about it.
I'm gonna make it short. I'm Vicky. I'm in first year of culinary as well. I'm going back to do hospitality next year, and I kind of have the same path. Like, I did something different before, a dental technician, I learned actually. But what was the turning point for you from being an electrician to pursue a career in the industry? I mean, it's both hands-on but totally different.
Well, I guess the same point when you got sick of sucking saliva out of people's mouths. This job really sucks. I need to get out of here. And so, like everyone else, I thought, you know, I'd have that pipe dream of running a cafe. And that's where I started, this idea of running a cafe, a few cappuccinos, work-life balance, and obviously the reality is far different. But anyway, here I am. So when I've told you to have a very linear trajectory to your plans and an end point, that's certainly not how it happened to me. So as I learnt, my ambition increased with my knowledge. So the more knowledge I gained, the more ambitious I became. I mean, that was just who I am as a person and how I approach things in life. And I think it's a good challenge for you guys as well to challenge yourself and pat yourselves on the back with what you've achieved and be ambitious to do more.
Thank you very much, Chef.
My pleasure.
Well, thank you so much, Chef. I really appreciate all your time and answering all these questions. And it's a wealth of information. I know sometimes the information will only unpack itself later, but we really appreciate your time, Chef.
Well, I look forward to checking in on you all later on sometime and say, where are they now? I hope to
Exactly.
You're going to be
I'll give you all their
very
locations.
famous and successful, and I'll be asking you guys for autographs.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Chef. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Cheers, guys.
Enjoy the rest of your day, Chef.
Stay safe.
Bye. You too.
Take care. Bye.